There are photos you scroll past, and then there are the ones that make you look twice, blink, and wonder if you've been duped by Photoshop. But what if the most viral Baywatch photo, the one plastered everywhere, wasn't edited at all?
My lovely assistant has bound me in shackles and chains.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
You're about to witness history in the making.
Behind that sun-drenched moment is a real story, a set secret, and a twist that rewrites what you thought you knew about TV's hottest lifeguards. When Baywatch broke the internet, before the internet, there are a million things people remember about Baywatch. The red swimsuits, the slow-motion running, the endless blue water, and the lifeguards who seemed to live in a sun-drenched dream where every beach crisis ended with a rescue and a wink. For all the plot lines that tried to be dramatic or daring, nothing ever matched the weird magic of the show's accidental moment, the bloopers and behind-the-scenes disasters that sometimes snuck onto the screen when nobody was paying attention. The most famous of all was captured in a single photograph that looked like a mistake, but ended up rewriting the rules for every fan who thought they knew what to expect from their favorite TV show. Back in the mid-90s, when Baywatch was not just a show, but a worldwide phenomenon watched by over 1 billion people in more than 140 countries, it was almost impossible to imagine the cast and crew as anything but flawless icons. Yet, the reality was often hilariously different. Working 12-hour days in the sand under relentless California sun would test anyone's patience, and more than once, it sent even the most seasoned actors into meltdown mode. If you happened to be on set during the shooting of the infamous blooper episode, you might have seen the cast stumble through their lines, fighting wind machines that would not cooperate, waves that never crashed on cue, and fans that somehow kept sneaking onto the beach in full costume, pretending to be extras just to get a glimpse of Pamela Anderson or David Hasselhoff in action. The day the photo was taken started like any other shoot, but it ended as the kind of disaster that nobody could script, and everyone would later claim to remember differently. First, there was the problem with the props. Someone had ordered 24 bright red Lifebuoys, but they arrived with the wrong logo. Every time a scene started, an intern would run into frame trying to swap them out for the right ones, while the director yelled into his megaphone to just keep rolling. Then there was the wind, which was supposed to give the actors that wind-swept hero look, but instead whipped their hair into knots and sent the script pages flying down the beach. At one point, a seagull landed in the middle of a close-up and refused to leave until a producer bribed it with half a sandwich. The whole thing felt like a circus that just happened to be wearing swim trunks and mirrored sunglasses. Nobody remembers exactly who snapped the photo, but every cast member claims it was not them. What everyone agrees on is that when the flash went off, it captured Pamela Anderson mid-rescue. Her face twisted in a half-laugh, half-grimace as she tried to untangle herself from the rescue board. David Hasselhoff looked off into the distance, pretending he did not see the sand stuck to his face, and a background extra tripped over a beach umbrella and fell straight into a cooler full of props. Everything about the shot screamed mistake, from the awkward poses to the stunned expressions. Yet somehow, it was perfect. It showed the world that even legends have their off days, and sometimes the best moments are the ones that never make it to the final cut. The photo did not make the season's promo package, but it started circulating among the crew and then made its way to fan clubs. Fans began sharing photocopies with handwritten notes about all the weird details hiding in the frame. People began to notice odd things, like a crew member reflected in a pair of sunglasses, a script page poking out of a beach bag, and what might have been a cameo by a famous 90s comedian who was visiting set that day. Depending on who you asked, every detail seemed to hold another secret. Soon, the photo became more famous than any actual scene from the show because it was real, it was raw, and it was proof that behind the tan and the glamour, everyone was just a little bit ridiculous. What happened next was even stranger. As Baywatch's global popularity kept growing, the photo became an underground sensation. It showed up in magazines, fanzines, and eventually in some of the earliest celebrity gossip websites. Long before anyone called it going viral, it sparked conspiracy theories, arguments, and even a mini documentary on German TV trying to track down every person pictured in the shot. By the time the 21st century rolled around, people had spent more time analyzing the Baywatch Blooper than some entire episodes. For years, the cast would get asked about it at conventions, interviews, and even at the grocery store. Everyone wanted to know, was it real? Was it staged? Was it edited? Was there something hiding in the background that nobody noticed? The answer was always the same. The only thing staged about that day was the attempt to make it look like everything was under control. If you think the story ends there, you have not seen what happened when Baywatch's producers realized that a single accidental photo had become the most talked-about artifact in the show's history. That's when they decided to embrace the chaos and use it to reinvent the show's legacy forever. How a blooper became the most analyzed photo in television history. The real magic of Baywatch was not just in the slow-motion heroics or the endless golden sunsets. It was in the way a single outtake could take on a life of its own long after the cameras stopped rolling. While the producers were obsessed with getting every shot just right, the fans at home always wanted something more, something that felt unscripted and a little bit wild. The Baywatch blooper photo became the ultimate symbol of that desire for authenticity, the kind that no amount of studio lighting or clever editing could ever create. As the blooper photo spread from one person to another, it became more than just a punchline or a curiosity. It turned into a puzzle that demanded to be solved. People began trading rumors and theories about what had really happened that day on the beach, and soon entire online communities were devoted to dissecting every blurry detail in the background. There were websites dedicated to zooming in on sunglasses, analyzing shadows, and even trying to decode what was scribbled on the script page peeking out of a tote bag. One fan claimed that if you looked close enough, you could see a cameo by a future superstar hiding behind the crowd. Another insisted that the awkward pose was actually a deliberate inside joke between the cast members. A few even thought the shot was a coded reference to a famous moment from another 90s show. As ridiculous as it sounds, the more people argued about it, the more legendary the image became. What really made the blooper photo so powerful, though, was how it captured the show's contradictions in a way that no glossy promotional shot ever could. On the surface, Baywatch was all about perfection, flawless bodies, bright colors, and the promise that every disaster would end with a hero's smile. Underneath it all, the show was an endless struggle against the chaos of real life, where nothing ever went according to plan, and the best moments were the ones that nobody saw coming. When fans saw the cast mid-stumble, laughing through the mess with hair blown sideways and sand in their eyes, it felt more real than any scripted rescue. In that raw honesty, people saw themselves, the awkward moments, the inside jokes, and the knowledge that sometimes the best memories come from the worst disasters. Nobody expected the blooper would eventually pull back the curtain on the show's secret history. For years, there had been whispers about what really happened behind the scenes on Baywatch. The stress, the rivalry, the constant pressure to stay perfect under the microscope of global fame. When the photo surfaced, those rumors only grew louder. Cast members started telling stories of long shooting days, accidental injuries, and the surreal experience of trying to act serious while dressed in nothing but swimwear and sunscreen. There were tales of sunburns that would not fade, tempers that flared over missing props, and entire episodes that had to be reshot because a wayward dolphin swam through the background or because a seagull decided to steal lunch from the craft services table. It was not just the cast who felt the pressure. Baywatch had become an international brand, one that made millions for its producers and advertisers every year. That meant the stakes were always high. Every episode was a gamble on what audiences in Brazil or Germany or Australia might want to see. The endless push for bigger stunts, crazier storylines, and flashier rescues created an atmosphere where even the smallest mistake could be turned into a crisis. So when the blooper photo showed the world that the stars were just as human as the rest of us, it did more than just make people laugh. It made them curious about everything the show was hiding out of frame. Over time, the photo's fame only grew. With the rise of the internet and social media, people began to share their own memories of watching Baywatch as kids or sneaking glimpses of the show after bedtime. More and more viewers started to see the blooper as a kind of time capsule, a reminder of a world where TV felt bigger than life and anything seemed possible. There were reunion interviews where the cast would be asked about the photo. Every time they would offer a slightly different version of events, sometimes claiming they remembered nothing, sometimes sharing a brand new twist or detail that set off another wave of fan theories. It got to the point where the blooper was no longer just a single photo, but a whole mythology built up over decades. Just when it seemed like there could not possibly be any more secrets hiding in the background, something new would always pop up. A long-lost crew member might share a behind-the-scenes memory, or an old script page might surface at auction, or a fresh high-resolution scan would make people question everything they thought they knew about that day on the beach. Which brings us to a question that has haunted Baywatch fans for years. What if there was something hidden in the photo that even the original cast and crew never noticed? If so, what does that say about the way we remember the past? Is it possible that a single unedited moment could still have the power to surprise us? If the answer is yes, then what else might be waiting just outside the edge of the frame in the Baywatch blooper? The hidden side of Baywatch's iconic bloaters. The power of an image like the Baywatch blooper is not just in what it shows, but in what it hints at. Every frame from a show this famous has layers that most viewers never see. On the surface, you get the splash of sunlight, the muscles, the red swimsuits, the signature beach haze. The real story always runs underneath, where the pressure of building a global TV juggernaut created more drama than any lifeguard rescue ever could. As the cameras rolled on endless summer days, the cast found themselves locked into routines that felt both glamorous and exhausting, with scenes repeating over and over to capture the right angle or the right glint on the water. Mistakes were not rare at all. They were constant and even a little bit treasured because they broke the tension and let everyone breathe. Producers knew this, but they also knew the world was watching. Every mistake that slipped into a final shot or made its way onto the set photographer's reel became something worth talking about later, a reminder that even the stars of Baywatch could not control every grain of sand or every gust of wind. What audiences never saw were the elaborate rituals the actors built to get through each day, the jokes that started as coping mechanisms and ended as legends, and the way a single misplaced prop or a flubbed line could ripple through the cast and change the entire mood for hours. There were days when the lifeguard towers felt like real watch posts, not because of the fake emergencies staged for TV, but because the cast was genuinely scanning for anything that might disrupt the delicate balance of performance and reality. The most surprising thing about these behind-the-scenes stories is how much they reveal about the personalities that made Baywatch iconic. While fans remember the hair, the running, and the big rescues, what the crew remembers are the moments of vulnerability. The stars sneaking snacks between takes, the little competitions to see who could keep a straight face through the silliest dialogue, or who could recover fastest from an embarrassing wipeout in front of a crowd of extras. There were friendships forged in sunburns and practical jokes, and rivalries built on who could hit their marks fastest, as the pressure to look perfect sometimes pushed everyone to their limits. More than once, an argument about choreography or screen time would spill over into the kind of drama that never made the tabloids but left a mark on the mood of the entire set. One story that keeps resurfacing is how the Baywatch team managed to turn every challenge into a bonding moment. Sometimes it was a wardrobe malfunction caught on camera, sometimes a sudden rainstorm that washed out an entire day of shooting, or a prop that floated away on the tide and forced the crew to improvise. In those moments, everyone became part of a team, not just actors and directors, but the grips, the lighting crew, the extras who spent hours waiting in the sun. Each person had a part to play in keeping the illusion alive, and every time they managed to pull off a great scene after a disaster, the sense of victory was real. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of these bloopers is how they turned the cast into something more than just faces on a screen. In the years since the show ended, interviews with actors and crew often circle back to the question of what it felt like to be part of something that became bigger than any of them had ever expected. Many talk about the friendships that lasted long after the final episode, or the lessons learned from working in such a relentless environment. Some remember feeling trapped by the fame, or frustrated by the limitations of their roles. Others recall a kind of freedom in the chaos, because when perfection was impossible, the only thing left to do was laugh, pick yourself up, and try again. These stories do not just add color to the Baywatch legend, they also invite viewers to think differently about their own favorite moments. When you know that every flawless scene was built on a mountain of mistakes, it becomes impossible not to root for the people behind the characters. It becomes clear that sometimes what lasts longest is not the image of running in slow motion, but the memory of everyone trying so hard to get it right. So what if the real secret to Baywatch's staying power was not just the sun, the surf, or the stars, but the way every imperfect moment brought the team a little closer together? If so, what does that mean for the rest of us, watching from a distance, still looking for something unexpected in the sand? And that brings us to a question that has fueled debates and late-night searches for decades. If a single outtake can change the way we remember an entire era, what other forgotten moments might still be waiting to be discovered on the cutting room floor? The Baywatch blooper that became a legend. Myths, obsessions, and the search for the truth. Sometimes a single photo can ignite 1,000 stories. For every frame captured on the golden beaches of Baywatch, there were 100 unplanned moments swirling just out of sight, waiting to become legend. There is perhaps no better example of this than the infamous Baywatch blooper photograph that fans still puzzle over to this day. When people first stumbled across it, there was immediate confusion. The image looked almost too perfect, yet something about it seemed just a little off. People paused, they zoomed in and out, they sent it to friends, and they debated whether it could possibly be real. What started as an accidental snapshot became a viral mystery that outlived even the most famous scenes of the show itself. In this now iconic photo, you see everything that defined Baywatch at its prime. The surf curling in the background, the sun drenching the sand in liquid gold, and the actors striking that impossible balance between action hero and everyday lifeguard. But if you look closer, you notice the little details that make the image so haunting. There is an odd angle in the background, a shadow that doesn't quite fit the shape of the people standing nearby. Maybe the hint of a hand where no hand should be, or a splash frozen in time that seems to defy gravity. At first, fans joked about it, assuming it was a trick of the light or a harmless artifact from the days before digital editing. But soon the questions piled up. Some said it was just a candid moment of chaos when a wave crashed in at the wrong second and the actors had to improvise. Others speculated about more elaborate behind-the-scenes stories. Maybe it was a practical joke pulled by the crew, or maybe it was the product of a rushed day when deadlines forced everyone to keep filming through mishaps. Either way, the photo became its own kind of legend, a symbol of the unpredictability that made Baywatch more than just another TV show. It was a reminder that even in a world built on fantasy, real life had a way of crashing in and leaving its mark. The obsession grew over the years as new generations of fans discovered the photo and tried to decode its mysteries. On internet forums and social media threads, people would post side-by-side comparisons of different frames from the same episode. They would hunt down old interviews with the cast and crew, searching for any clue about what really happened that day. Sometimes they uncovered odd bits of trivia, like the fact that the show often filmed several scenes at once using body doubles and split-second timing to make the action look seamless, or that certain props would reappear in different scenes because the budget was stretched to the limit. Every theory added another layer to the story, but none seemed to explain the strange perfection of that one blooper. As more and more fans became amateur detectives, the producers finally weighed in. Some dismissed the photo as a happy accident. Others admitted that mistakes were an everyday reality on a show with a pace as relentless as Baywatch. One producer recalled that filming on the beach brought a unique kind of chaos because you could plan the timing of a rescue or the choreography of a run, but you could never predict what the ocean would do next. On some days, the tides would shift suddenly, the waves would come in too strong, and the actors would get swept off their marks. On others, the sun would move behind a cloud, and the whole scene would need to be reshot in a mad scramble to catch the perfect light. There were moments when equipment failed, or an extra wandered into the frame, or a lifeguard buoy ended up in the wrong hands, and yet those moments often created the kind of unscripted magic that audiences never forgot. Digging deeper into the origins of the Baywatch blooper reveals a truth that is both more mundane and more fascinating than any wild theory. In the world of classic television, the boundary between accident and intention is always blurry. Every episode was a patchwork of carefully planned action sequences and happy accidents, because the schedule was so tight that almost nothing could be reshot unless there was a disaster. Instead, the crew learned to adapt on the fly. A camera operator would signal when something went wrong, and the actors would keep going until the director yelled, "Cut!" Sometimes a scene would include an extra stumble or an unplanned reaction, because the alternative was to risk missing the day's deadline. That improvisational spirit gave Baywatch a raw, unpredictable energy that made every episode feel alive. The real secret behind the photo's power lies in the way it captures the human side of the show. Everyone remembers the larger-than-life characters, the sun-drenched beaches, and the epic rescues. But behind the scenes, the cast was a team of young actors, many of them new to fame, who faced the same nerves, insecurities, and moments of doubt as anyone else. There were days when the pressure to look flawless felt overwhelming, and nights when the cast would gather after a grueling shoot to vent and laugh about the mistakes that almost ruined the day. The bloopers became a kind of shared language, a way to acknowledge that even the world's most glamorous lifeguards were still just people trying to do their best under impossible circumstances. It is easy to forget that Baywatch was made at a time when every mistake was permanent. There was no easy way to edit out a flubbed line or a mistimed wave, no green screen to erase a wandering dog from the background. The cast and crew became masters of recovery. When something went wrong, they worked together to keep the illusion alive. Sometimes those moments turned out better than anything in the script. The famous slow-motion runs, for example, were partly invented as a way to cover up continuity errors because they gave editors more footage to work with. The iconic music was often chosen at the last minute when the original plan fell through, and the best one-liners were almost always improvised on the spot. The result was a show that never felt frozen in time. Even now, the Baywatch blooper photo resonates because it is a reminder that perfection is an illusion, and that the things we remember most are often the ones that broke the mold. The actors who made mistakes and kept going became legends, not because they were flawless, but because they found a way to turn disaster into triumph. Every great story needs a little chaos to stay alive. Of course, there are still some mysteries that fans cannot quite let go. There are rumors of a hidden message painted on one of the lifeguard towers just out of frame, or a prop that appeared in the blooper as a private joke between the cast and crew. Some say that if you look closely enough, you can spot the shadow of a camera operator in the reflection on the water, or catch a glimpse of a lost script page blowing across the sand. While most of these stories are probably just wishful thinking, they speak to the endless fascination that Baywatch continues to inspire, even decades after the cameras stopped rolling. Every so often, someone claims to have found a new clue hidden in the photo, and a fresh wave of speculation begins. Sometimes a former crew member will post a memory on social media, and the cycle starts again, with fans around the world poring over every detail, searching for answers that may never come. What keeps the legend alive is not the possibility of solving the mystery, but the thrill of the search itself. The best stories do not have simple endings. They invite us to look closer, to wonder, and to imagine what might still be hiding in plain sight. In a way, that is what Baywatch was always about. Beneath the sunburned glamour and high-stakes rescues, the heart of the show was a group of people trying to make something unforgettable out of ordinary chaos. The blooper photo stands as proof that sometimes the most enduring moments are the ones nobody planned. That even the world's most famous lifeguards could slip, fall, laugh, and get back up again. In doing so, they created something more lasting than any perfect shot could ever be. So the next time you see that iconic photo, do not just skim past it. Pause, take another look. Let your eyes wander over the waves and shadows, and let your mind drift to all the unseen stories waiting beneath the surface. Every snapshot from the past is a window into another world, a reminder that history is never finished, and that the search for answers can be just as thrilling as the answers themselves. As we leave the beaches of Baywatch behind and move on to the next legend in television history, ask yourself this: what will the next accidental icon be? What overlooked detail, what unsolved mystery will become the thing that future generations cannot stop talking about? Maybe the real legacy of Baywatch is not the sun or the surf or even the stars, but the way it invites us all to look just a little bit closer. Looking back at the wild world of Baywatch, it is easy to see why a single photo could spark endless curiosity and keep fans coming back for more. The truth behind the infamous blooper is not about perfection or flawless edits, but about the human moments that slip through the cracks and become legends all their own. What Baywatch left behind is a lesson for anyone who ever chased the dream of getting everything right. Sometimes it is the unscripted accidents, the lost props, and the surprised laughter that tell the real story. Even decades later, those imperfect memories have a way of making us feel connected, not just to the show, but to each other. So next time you find yourself lost in the perfect glow of nostalgia, remember that what made Baywatch stick with us was not just the sun and the surf, but the secrets and the stumbles just out of sight. If you enjoyed this deep dive into TV history and want more untold stories and hidden legends, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about your own favorite behind-the-scenes moment. Are you ready for the next adventure? Let us know below, because the search for the next iconic blooper is just getting started, and we cannot wait to see what you uncover next.